Welcome back for part 2 with Coach Sean. We know you're going to absolutely love this episode. Coach Sean and the team at Call to Action dive into some great current climate topics on strength and conditioning, what it's like to train some of the best athletes in the world, and even dive into the social media fitness game. Unfortunately, the audio feed got messed up about midway through, and it turns to Skype audio feed, and you'll notice the difference. So we apologize in advance. It is my fault. I'm still learning, adjusting to these unique times and trying to adapt and overcome. So forgive me, but the content is amazing. Coach Sean was a phenomenal guest, and we can't wait for you guys to enjoy. Part 2, Coach Sean. Hit it.
Welcome to the Call to Action podcast, where we bring you incredible people and even more incredible stories with discussions and topics about what it takes to sacrifice everything to overcome hardships and failures to achieve success. Our guests heard the call. Now it's your turn.
Hey, this program works for a reason, and he was able to come back. Like, what was the injury? Maybe who was the player?
Yeah. Okay. Let's go two. Yep. I'll do two things. One, individual. Now, again, I'm not a rehab specialist or an athletic trainer or a physical therapist, but I will say that there was a player that I had at Cruz Azul that actually had a fracture in his foot, right, and was out for, I want to call it maybe 6 to 8 weeks. 8 weeks, and this is the captain of the team. This is, stud, even, had been national team player for a lot of years, and I worked with him every day. Now this is an example of a guy that is just a workhorse that just works and takes care of himself. So the idea is that basically when he was cleared to play, that he would be able to play. Does that make sense? As opposed to just, okay, so you get to the point, obviously doing rehab. Now this is a fracture, so it's not like a sprain or a muscle injury. Unfortunately, a foot fracture, you just kind of have to wait until it heals. So I worked with him every day for, I guess it was 8 weeks. He was cleared, I believe, if I'm not mistaken, on a Monday or Tuesday, and played in the semifinal. It was the final for the CONCACAF Champions League, and the team ended up winning. The team ended up winning, and he played every minute without having practiced in 2 months.
What player was this? Can you name drop?
His name is Torrado. Is his name. Last name is Torrado. Gerardo Torrado.
Small, insignificant player, no Mexican, nationalist would ever hear of or know of. Yeah. Massive player.
Actually now is the general manager of the national team.
Wow.
And to me, and that was unfortunately, this is a very unsung achievement, because obviously no one knew about it. And it's just, okay, he's ready to play. He plays. They win it. And he is an institutional guy. I know what I did. He knows what I did. But really nobody else does. But yeah, that was a big thing. And the other one is here recently, when I came here with this team, they had they had 10 or 11 injured players, and a lot of them non-contact injuries, hamstring injuries, these type of things. And we were able to reduce that to basically right now there's not a single player that was injured, and that was even before the whole quarantine and everything. So just by tweaking the training methodology a little bit, getting the players healthy, obviously with the help of the physios. But that's one reason why they brought me in. They said, hey, 2 things: help us reduce the non-contact injuries, and improve the players' conditioning. And
Is that a high number? 12 non-contact injuries?
It was crazy. I never seen it.
Yeah, that's nuts.
I'd never seen that before. And, again, I don't really know specifically what went on or didn't go on before I came here, but it seems like there was not a lot of strength training, and there was not a lot of high-speed running during the week because, like we say, the sport is constantly, it's faster, it's constantly being played fast, and if the players aren't ready for that stimulus on the weekend with a midweek high-speed running day, once they're thrown into the game, not everything is small-sided games, right? Not everything is just quick, short movements. You have to let them open up and get some long sprints, long high-speed running.
Coach Sean, is there one thing that you do coming into these teams that you think really is like a competitive advantage for you? Something that you do that really turns it around and it's different from what the previous coach was doing, and then boom, you just see this result that you're looking for.
Right. I just think it's it's years of experience. I mean, honing the craft, being able to see what the actual needs are of the players, and just kind of falling back on all the education and specifically the experience that I have, and just see where improvements need to be made. And again, going back to the concept of getting the players to buy in. I'm not sort of a come down hard on the player, yell at players, push the players in that manner. That's never been me. It never will be. I'm more interested in the individual and team motivation. Try to get the best out of the team as possible. But also, like I say, go back to things that, in my opinion, a lot of teams don't do very well, and that's in strength training. I just don't think they understand the benefits of strength training, or what I see out of strength training is just it's pretty weak. I mean, it's not it's less than optimal.
Falling back on your training now, with this new team, you started to see some changes. How have you been adapting with this COVID, pandemic, and being in a country where, as we were saying before we started recording, I mean, you have to send a freaking message out to the government asking to go out. How do you adapt your training programs and all this momentum you had going into this new season with this new team? What are you guys doing now? I mean, has it completely hit a halt? What are you guys doing to adapt and overcome?
Right. Well, since the very beginning, and I've had to develop the program as it goes along, because initially it was okay. The weekend's off, the game's off for the weekend, but we'll be back on Monday. Okay. Next thing I know, there's 3 days we're not going to train, so I have to create a program for 3 days. No, now for a week, now 2 weeks, now it's week after week, and now we have a tentative date. But what I've done is just develop a strength program, a core program, and a running program. Keeping in mind, there are a number of players that don't have any type of equipment, and so I'm just trying to get them programs that they can do at home that are going to at least have some type of overload involved with them, and try to keep their running up. The running program very specifically, like I said, there's very different types of running. There's sprints, there's speed intervals, there's tempo running, there's continuous running, and try to get it all sort of within the week of their training, so they can take the program and they go out wherever they can, around their house, wherever they can. And I've been in constant contact with the players and asking individually and in small groups and as a whole, either whether it's video conference or WhatsApp messages, how you doing with the program? Just trying to let them know there's going to be an end to this, and when this end comes, we're going basically into another preseason. So be as prepared as possible, because we'll end up with 3 or 4 weeks, and then we're going to jump right into a playoff, which is a very unique situation that no one's ever done before. A preseason followed by a playoff. I mean, you never do a preseason for a playoff, which is going to be different for me as well, because you also rely on sort of the first number of weeks of the season to keep improving the fitness of the team.
Right.
That's out the door because it's going to be a 4-week preseason followed by 2 games a week, double match days until the season's over.
So this is a new experiment for you as well.
Absolutely. And this goes into the program that I'm setting up, but I'm also nervous about it because I know we're going to do a good job in the preseason, but then it's double match day for 5 weeks.
You seem exceedingly prepared for this.
I hope so. And I put all the confidence in the players to be doing their homework and staying motivated. And like I said, we do some video calls also to kind of keep some type of group integration.
Do you host workouts on video calls as well, like live workouts?
Yeah, we didn't initially, but then we started doing that, and I wasn't really big on it, to be honest with you, because it's not better than what the program in and of itself is.
And I also thought it kind of felt a little too Big Brother-ish, right? That you're kind of looking at them. So what I did is end up basically doing a 30-minute type workout, mainly focused on core exercises, right? Because they're going to do that anyway. So basically core, and then after that, then they go and they work the strength workout, and then do the running program either in a separate workout or however they want to do it. Now this week it's going to be a little different in that we'll do some type of 10-minute activity followed by something different. So group integration, when you're in the locker room and you're on the field and you're in the gym or you're at the hotel, having the meals, there's a lot of interaction with the players. Well, now there's very limited interaction. So I've come up with a trivia game that I'm going to be able to do on a video call, and it's going to be a surprise to them, by the way. So we're going to divide the team, the group up. I have 2 different groups, right? A Monday, Thursday group and a Tuesday, Friday group. And of those groups, we'll divide it up, and we're going to do a trivia game. And at the end, there's going to be, two losing teams and 2 winning teams. And ultimately, the one of the losing teams is going to have to, once we're finally able to join as a group, one group is going to bring pizzas for everyone, for example, and the other losing team is going to bring beers for everyone. And that's how we're going to hopefully, sort of bring it back together as a team with pizza and beer. And, it's all going to be based off of this trivia game that I'm going to drop on them this week. And funny trivia. I started out with kind of goofy, kind of this standard, who won this and such World Cup, and kind of sort of in the box type of things. Then I started thinking, I said, no, I don't like that so much. And so I started coming up with I throw up a Disney princess, right? What's this Disney princess name, right? So there's certain guys that will have an advantage. The ones that have, maybe daughters, right, that have seen these movies over and over again, they'll know. Or think things. Or I threw a couple like video game questions that even I didn't really know. I had to look it up. I said, whoever's into video games, they're getting this question. Whoever's into this and this. So it's gonna be interesting. And some are relatively easy, and some are definitely not easy. But it's gonna be fun.
That's creative, my man.
Yeah, I kind of want to join in and lose and end up buying beers for you guys.
I know, me too, man. Me too. Today's episode is brought to you by Squadcast. The Squadcast platform connects podcast hosts, co-hosts, and guests to record the best quality audio from anywhere. All other platforms rely on Wi-Fi for audio, and there's nothing worse than when you're in the middle of a great conversation, things are flowing, but the audio feed instantly freezes. Or worse, transforms your voice into an Alvin and the Chipmunks character. It's not ideal for virtual recordings. That's why Squadcast was built. The platform utilizes your device's hardware while recording for the most pure, uninterrupted audio quality throughout the whole conversation. It is not reliant on Wi-Fi, so even if the video cuts out, you can be sure your audio is going to be perfect in post-production. And I believe they're working on making the video quality unaffected by Wi-Fi as well for the near future. As you can tell, we definitely could have used Squadcast for this episode, but unfortunately, we got sponsored after the episode was recorded with Coach Sean, and the Skype audio quality isn't up to call to action standards. But when we get him on for round 2, you can expect perfection. It's simple to use. Just show up, hit record. No installs, plugins, or extensions. Quality matters to everyone, so get your Squadcast 7-day free trial at squadcast.fm. That is SQUADCAST.fm, and record remote podcasts that your listeners will love, like you, our CTAPers. What about that Mexican national team player that got kidnapped?
Yeah.
It got kidnapped.
Really? He was playing in Olympicos, right? In Greece.
Right.
Olympic
Yeah, it's not.
yeah.
Yeah, and then he went back to Chivas. Yeah. Now he's at.
Really?
Now where is he? He's at. Is that one of the MLS teams right now?
And he broke out of confinement and.
So that wasn't a real story?
It's definitely not clear that he was ever kidnapped at any moment.
Oh, man.
Really?
Yeah, no.
Shameful.
Good publicist. I mean, hell, why not?
Something went weird there, but it's not. Yeah, it's no. It doesn't. Everything indicates he was never kidnapped at any moment.
Oh, Jesus. Well, to continue on with bullshit, as we kind of wrap up into strength and conditioning, the current climate of it, and I guess, training in general, with no access to gyms, you see all these people nowadays downloaded all the fitness apps, listening to all the fitness influencers that are personal trainers and, consuming so much content, and who knows what's good or what's bad. What's your kind of take on the self-proclaimed YouTube and Instagram trainers versus legitimate ones, and what does a science-based training program provide a user versus an IG model flashing her hoo-has and chi-chis in a thong doing a booty circuit? Like, what's the difference?
Yeah. It's funny because I'm not really sure if people are actually following the workouts that those people do. I know, I'll give an example.
I do.
Yeah, right. I know you do, but you're easily influenced by Instagram booty model.
Oh my God, you know me too well.
But you can always see it when you're at a gym, right? I mean, I can always spot it when I see, especially women or young women doing stuff that's just crazy. And I said, she saw that on Instagram or YouTube or something, but again, it's, I think people that are, serious into, performance and into fitness, they know the difference, and I know there's a lot of information out there. And some of it is not very valid, but some is valid. And ultimately you just have to, try to sort through it all and figure out what's going to work. Now, obviously what I'm doing is something completely different where, the objective is very tangible what the objective is. I mean, I know specifically the parameters that I'm trying to do, but, I think ultimately things are going to kind of go back to, relatively normal, meaning I don't think people are going to be working out in their homes forever. People are going to go back to the gym. Right.
Thank goodness.
Again, ultimately it's just, you don't have as much available at home. You know what I mean? So, but yeah, it is fairly ridiculous. Fortunately, in the U.S., also for people that actually seek help professionally, whether it's at a gym, at a fitness club. Well, now even just because of legal issues, clubs and companies, they have to hire people with some type of at least certification, if not a minimum of a college degree and a certification. Now, again, certifications also vary quite a bit. Like, I've had my certification through the National Strength Conditioning Association for 25 years, 26 years now since I, came out of university, because they require a university degree. And it's a very it's a tough exam that you have to study
The
for.
most prestigious.
Exactly. Now, since then, I've also completed another one, which was really good and equally as challenging, and that's the UK Strength and Conditioning Association, where I actually had to travel to London and sit for an exam, do practical portions of this exam, and it was time consuming and it was very challenging. So I hang on to that certification as well.
Were you using that to kind of look into you have to have that for, like, let's say you wanted to work with Man City or somebody over
Definitely.
in England, you need that for that league?
Yeah, that was sort of my rationale for doing it, because I'd seen a lot of the job postings ask for it or to be able to complete it
Gotcha.
within a certain number of months. So I figure, I just want to bulletproof the resume as much as possible. Now, to be honest, working in Mexico for all the years, it's really not valued as much. But
Interesting.
but now at this point, okay, so now I'm with a team that's considered a European club, a European league, and I think it is valued a little more. And if I'm gonna, if I decide, or if there's some type of opportunity to move on to another place, it's got to help. And I know, one thing I always recommend to people that are trying to get into strength conditioning is to get as much on the resume as possible. Get as much on the resume as possible. It's even something that I know, I have a 16-year-old and now looking towards university and kind of thinks she knows what she wants to do. And this is something I'm recommending to her. I'll give a very interesting story. The last club I worked for in Mexico is called Lobos WAP, First Division Club. The very first day that I showed up for training, and it was just me because the rest of the coaching staff hadn't shown up yet. There was this student that was part of the university, because this team was associated with the university. It's similar to like Pumas or Tigres. It's associated to university. They're not university players. It's very specific to football, so I'm walking in the gate, and there was a university student there, and he said, "Oh, can I talk to you?" Me? Yeah. Oh, I mean, he already knew that I was a strength conditioning coach, the fitness coach coming in. He said, "Oh, I need to do my internship, and I'd like to do it with you." Like, with me? Okay. Sure. Yeah. Look, I need to get going. I need to work. And yeah, just come back tomorrow. Next day, kid was standing right there. Again, he says, "Look, I don't mean to push you, but I already have the letter from my professor. If you can just sign it, if you're willing to take me on as a internship assistant." I'm like, "Okay, perfect. Yeah, if you're fired up, perfect. I need that. Okay, good."
Go clean the toilets.
No, I did it. No. He did everything that. Yeah, I had him do everything. But I'll tell you, I mean, even stuff that I didn't really want to do, obviously. But this is a good example. This young kid, very limited experience, basically almost no experience in football, especially on the first division. Pressured me for a few days, sure, no problem. And this kid busted his ass. Internship, which turned in. I mean, who does this sound like? Internship. Yeah. Followed by volunteer position, followed by we were able to get him a paid position, making a little bit of money.
Yeah.
Now he's working.
Wow.
Now he's working with the under 20s at Chivas. And it was that he was willing to put himself out there and work for free, and important. I mean, it's super important. I know everyone wants to get paid right out of the gate. And I've also heard plenty of people that criticize the internship program or the volunteer type program, especially in the U.S. I disagree. I'm sorry, I disagree. Because why is an organization going to pay someone that has no experience doing that position? I don't get it. I mean, not just because I had to go through it, which I did, but because I went through it for a reason. I went through it because I learned a lot, and because without that experience, I couldn't have taken the next step. The next step being a paid position.
That's amazing, man. And I don't even know that it requires any bit of last additional advice to somebody trying to get into, but if you could give, maybe some other little pieces of wisdom for that, key takeaways for that hungry person, like you just said, aspiring to be in a first division club, many extras, or, even an Instagram or YouTube trainer wanting to kind of level up their content. Obviously what you're doing is a bit different, but maybe to like give themselves more, how would I say, credit in the eyes of the actual professionals who are doing this at the highest level. What are some pieces of advice you'd give them right now, especially with the pandemic, maybe to like spend time in this area or another? What would you tell them right now?
Yeah, well, good question, but I mean, geared more towards the professional strength conditioning coach. In most countries, this is constantly evolving into a very professional position. It's got to be almost impossible, especially in a big league team or a professional club, to come in with no education and without any type of certifications and very solid experience behind it. So to me, it starts with education, know the field, get the degrees. Now, again, this doesn't mean getting a doctorate degree. Maybe if you're more towards the sports science side, but if you're into the strength conditioning side, get the degrees, get certifications, get as much on the resume as possible.
Which certifications, real quick? Which ones?
I mean, to me, there's nothing better than the certified strength conditioning specialist with the National Strength Conditioning Association or the UK Strength Conditioning Association, what they call a accredited member, meaning you've gone through the process of the exam, the practical exams, and you've presented a project with them. That's very specific towards this, right? Which is a very professional thing. But if it's just the individual person, get some basic background in sports science and figure out a way to communicate with things on Instagram and things like that. I think it's more of a question of being a good communicator. Even I could learn from some of those people that know how to get a lot of followers and know how to get people to buy into what their program is. They have something probably not studied, but somehow they figured out how to communicate their message. Communicate the message.
Is there a piece of technology upcoming, something that's maybe on the horizon, these people ought to pay attention to? Something that in some years, should be on their radar now so that when it happens.
In professional sports.
Yeah. Well, in training, maybe it's a workout. Maybe it's a specific workout. Maybe it's some hardware for training with a workout.
Right. In terms of general fitness, not that I know of. I mean, there's plenty of things out there, especially whether it's Garmin watches, or for example, I'm using the Whoop, that type of thing, which I like for recovery. That stuff is out there right now. Obviously, in professional sports, the use of the GPS systems is, most of the main teams have it. It doesn't mean they know how to use it properly. They can get the data, but I think a lot of teams don't quite know what to do with the data. They're just compiling data just because everyone else is doing it, if that makes sense. To me, it's a very critical part of the planning. I talked about high-speed running and the importance of doing high-speed running during the week compared to the match day. There's no way to actually have that data without a GPS system. But again, that doesn't mean that that staff or strength conditioning coaches know how to use that data. I mean, even I continue to improve because this wasn't something that was there when I started, or even 10 years ago. It's fairly recent. And it's just know how to use the data to plan the weekly schedules and to plan all the the drills that you're going to do with the players.
Yeah.
Well,
So
hey,
become a little bit of a data scientist.
Any of your clubs that decide to fund a program to maybe start developing this, and you need some technical, software engineers or whatnot, let us know, bro. We'll do some work together.
Absolutely.
Oh yeah. So where can our listeners or CTAPers find you on your social media? Do you have a website? Where can they find you on your successful YouTube channel? You've got thousands of followers there. Where can they? We'll link them in the show notes. But for those listening right now, what would you? Where can they find you?
Sure. Okay. You have a YouTube channel that's very specific towards strength conditioning for soccer or football. I have must be hundreds of videos on there over the last number of years. Some in the gym, some on the field, but there's a lot of stuff in there, and that's at my name, Sean Buckley, on YouTube. Instagram, Sean_Edmund_Buckley. And then I also have another side project that I do with a good friend of mine and the coach that I've worked for and with for the last couple of years, named Paco Palencia, very famous Mexican national player. We have a podcast called El Poderoso Podcast de Palencia. I think we've come out with 20-some episodes, trying to come out with some more. Got some pretty good topics, and that's something 100% in Spanish.
What's the essence of the podcast for those that don't habla español?
It's a lot of fitness tips, nutrition tips. We have a number of guests on there. We talk about the very specific experiences that those guests have had. We've had Mark Jindrak, who people that have followed the WWE for a number of years was a wrestler on the WWE for a number of years. We've had some famous players, Mexican players. We most recently had Pablo Barrera, who's a famous player at Pumas and the Mexican national team. Also played at West Ham in the Premier League. And most recently, we spoke to a guy named Manolo Lapuente, who has 5 Mexican League titles, was the national team coach for Mexico, has done literally everything. An older guy that knows everything there is possibly to know, and just fantastic to talk to people like that with such vast experience.
Hey, real quickly, Coach Sean, let's turn the script around just a bit. Maybe even if it's just for us or for our listeners, could you give us just a little bit of a poke through that window as to the machine that we know as Ben Gordon today when you were training him some years ago?
Yeah, I want to hear this.
Not much different. Very talented athlete. I'll tell you that. On the football pitch, very, very talented guy. Very skillful. Absolute pleasure to work with. He and a number of other players that I had the opportunity to work with.
Yeah, we know him here as this man who brings in a whirlwind of energy, that's for sure. And he goes so hard, and I can only imagine that what he was doing on the field, he's taking now into the computer and doing it sort of electronically. He has a certain gusto, that's for sure. And it's something that, again, us old timers, I consider myself one. We have as much of this in our field, the kind of like high energy. I'm going to go.
No, but honestly, yeah. But no, all joking aside, I think there's a big crossover to people that push themselves into sports and push themselves in other fields. I don't think there's a difference. I think there's plenty of people that especially people that worked hard to become good athletes. They just have that drive and the discipline to carry it over into other fields.
Yeah, and drive is like universal language that speaks to everybody, all of our listeners, regardless of what they're doing. Just have that drive, have that perseverance. And I think they've learned that from you here today, Coach. Thank you so much.
Yeah, man. I mean, just to end on it real quick, you definitely were a huge inspiration, helping me understand, at an earlier age. We had the benefit of getting your experience and expertise in Sedona, where, I grew up. And then, giving me the opportunity to come train, with Cruz Azul for a little bit and just helping me get into my professional game after that. And, man, it's just, thank you for everything you did for me. And I just hope that this podcast is a little thanks, appreciation back towards you, and that we can promote you in some way, in shape or form. So really appreciate you, bro.
Absolutely. Appreciate it, man.
He's a man that can turn your physical weaknesses into strengths. His holy methods defy the odds of performance gains. Coach Sean, thanks for coming on our show, man. And stay safe out there. And we'll keep in touch, man. Look forward to what's coming up in your near future.
Absolutely. Appreciate it, guys.
Also, please, if you want to show support, smash that subscribe button on whatever platform you're listening on. If you're watching on YouTube, leave a comment, thumbs up, thumbs down, whatever you think. We want honest feedback. Let us know how we're doing. And if you're feeling extra positive, go to Apple Podcast app, maybe even a 5-star review. It would mean the world to us. One last note, we do have a mobile app on the Apple App Store for Call to Action Podcast. We're utilizing and showcasing a new technology we've been playing with. So go check that out, download it, let us know what you think there, and we'll see you next time. I'm your host, Ben, and this is Call to Action Podcast. Command Q.